Hey, everybody. We are live today for another episode of the Shit Talking Podcast. I'm Christina.
And I'm Robin.
And I just have to say, I'm having a good hair day.
You really are. For those of you who are not watching but listening, I think I spent the last 5 minutes telling Christina how fantastic her hair looks because it looks amazing. So
Thank you.
that should just tell you all that if you don't actually watch and you don't tune in live, you need to, because this is all the good stuff you're missing. You're missing the good hair days. You're missing the fantastic hoops she has on. Those
Thank
are
you. I
hoops. Yeah.
always wear these hoops. These are my go-tos.
Yeah. We're a hoop people here.
Yeah, we like hoops.
Yeah, we're a fan of the hoop.
And so do you ever think of, well, you're not wearing eyeliner. I don't know how often you do wear eyeliner, but I feel like there are days when I have good eyeliner days. Like it just goes on perfectly.
Those for me are few and far between. In fact, I typically do wear eyeliner daily. But now that I have my lashes done, I don't wear eyeliner because I have individual lashes, like the lash extensions. And I feel like putting the eyeliner on and then having to take it off will just kind of mess up the lashes. So I don't even bother with eyeliner now.
Yes.
Yeah. I miss it though. I do. But usually, why I say my good eyeliner days are few and far between is because there's always one eye that's like very thick. Like I get one that's either perfect and I go, I want it to look exactly like that. Then I try to do the other eye and it gets very thick. So then I make the other one thicker. And then before I know, it's like complete drag queen eyeliner because it's so thick.
I feel your pain.
Good.
I get it.
Good.
I mean, I've been doing this for so long now that it doesn't take long. It just kind of goes on smoothly. So it's practice. Practice makes perfect, Robin.
I feel like this ties into our topic of feminism. Is all of this even feminist talk? All this makeup crap that we do to ourselves, is that really within the feminist image of what we're supposed to be doing? I don't know.
Well, this might shock you, but I did research.
Yay! I'm so excited. Tell me about all of your research.
Well, okay, so that's where things go downhill. I intended to do more research. All I really got to, the extent of my research was, I copied and pasted this from the interwebs. It's just a definition of feminism, because I thought it would make sense to start out with what is feminism. And the definition that I got off the interwebs was the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes. So I don't know, maybe we should talk about what is feminism. Do you think that's a pretty apt definition?
I think so. I mean, when I think of feminism, I certainly think of it from a perspective of that there should be equality between men and women. I'm not going to really get into, the issues of, gender norms and what is a man and what is a woman and all of those things. I think that's another show, because I do know that there are some people that don't want to be defined as a man or a woman. And I think that that's a different issue. But for the purpose of simplification, I do think that it has something to do with equality between the sexes. But I mean, I don't know. I think that one of the issues I have is, are we really equal? Like, can that even be possible for the sexes to be equal? I mean, we're definitely different, but is it possible for two things to be different but still equal?
Well, I sure hope so, since our three branches of government are supposed to be separate but equal. I mean, is it working? That might be another topic, but
yeah, but there's also case law. I mean, if you go back to, Brown versus the Board of Education, they're saying separate but equal is not a thing. Like it's not a thing. So, I mean, I don't know. I think if you were to ask a lot of people about their definition of feminism, they really look at it as, people thinking about the superiority of women. I think that probably is an image that's unfolded over a lot of years of people kind of misconstruing what feminism is supposed to be and being like, oh, well, you just think women are better. I mean, for the record, I do. But I mean, I don't think that that makes me a feminist. That probably just, means that I just think very highly of myself and other women. I don't know.
Well, it's interesting that there even has to be this label. I mean, why do you or I or anybody have to categorize themselves as a feminist or not? What does that label really mean? And I think, another question could be, do we need feminism anymore? Right? Like the question
Mm.
today is, did feminism really help us? And we'll get into that, but maybe another question too is, do we still need it? And before you answer too quickly, because I think a lot of people think we don't,
Hmm.
but I think the level of inequality like 30 years ago was more pronounced.
Right.
Right. And I think we sort of we trick ourselves into thinking, well, there's women doctors and women lawyers and women judges, and, you see women places more. And it can kind of lull you into thinking on the surface that,
Hmm.
okay, well, we're equal now. But what I've learned over time, if you dig a little deeper, we're still not getting paid as much as men. I mean, that's a
No.
fact, right? That doesn't mean you can't find a woman who's making more than a man in the same job. But overall, the data shows that it's far more common to see a man and a woman in the same role, and the man is getting paid more. And that's just one example. I am not a
Hmm.
feminist expert or a sociology expert. If we had someone like that on here, they could rattle off so many more examples. But I
Well,
think
yeah.
that's really the issue.
Well, but here's my thought though. So I guess if we go back and we look at why, the feminist movement or feminism was even born, like what was it, what necessitated this movement, right? So I typically connect it to voting rights. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. I always look at this as kind of going hand in hand with the suffragist movement of, women should be given the right to vote. And then it kind of started down this path of feminism. Granted, that was quite a long time ago. And if you go into, I guess more modern day feminism, maybe within the 70s or going into, all of that. I don't know if you read The Feminine Mystique. I don't know if you're a Betty
I
Friedan
did.
fan. I don't know. But if you go through all of that history and say, why was this even necessary? Um, I always think about voting. I think in my mind,
Yeah.
that's where it started.
No,
So if
I think that's
that's
a
the
great observation.
definition, wait, but if that's the definition, then we don't need it anymore. Like women can vote now.
Yes,
So you're
right.
good. You're
Well, we can
good.
vote. We're
Right.
done now. No. No, you're right. That's a really good observation. But I guess the question we're really answering today is, did feminism really help us? Which I guess is maybe that's just a little nuanced. And the reason I think about that question is because there was somebody, I won't say who because I don't want him to get blasted, but there was someone that I respect, an older man
Hmm.
who was influential in my legal career, who always said that he felt that feminism actually hurt women. And the reason for that, in his view, was because, and I'm sorry, to as another aside, you said you think of voting when you think
Hmm.
feminism. I don't know why, but I always think of women in the 50s, because the
Okay.
50s was the oddball. A lot of people use the 50s as sort of the measuring stick, but it actually wasn't. 50s
Yeah.
was the oddball, where all the guys came back from war and women didn't have to work anymore because all the men were back. As Donald Trump would say, the husbands were back to work. And
The
so
husbands.
so they could resume their duties in the household. And it was a really extreme time where women were staying home and they were baking cookies and taking care of the children, and the man went to work and came
Hmm.
home and dinner was on the table. And I'm sure you've seen those old home economics books that tell them, keep the children clean. When your husband gets home, make sure he has a clean house and dinner on the table. Like, I mean, my God, what a dreadful existence. But, that's sort of what I think of. And then women got tired of that shit. And I think that's a
Yeah.
lot of what's talked about in Betty Friedan's book. Women didn't
Well,
want that anymore. They wanted
you
to go to work, and they couldn't because people would be like, "Oh, well, not that they couldn't, but it was harder because people
yeah.
would look at them like, "Well, you're a woman, why do you wanna work? You should stay home and take care of the kids."
Okay, but let's think about this in a way, and I think it's interesting that you bring up your friend who says that feminism actually hurt women who happen to be a man. And it's funny because I have a friend who also happens to be a man that makes that same argument that feminism really hurt women,
Yeah.
for a lot of different reasons. But I guess I'd like to unpack a couple of them. And the first is, let's look at it from a societal perspective. When you look at that oddball decade of the 50s, and you look at the fact that women did stay home and women did care for the house and care for the children, and there was a clear division of, I will say, labor, for lack of a better word, that a
Mhm.
man was responsible for doing certain things and the woman was responsible for doing certain things. Do you think that families were better? Do you think that society was better? Do you think that um maybe we weren't kind of going to hell in a handbasket in the way that we are now? And I'm not saying the two are connected, but I'm curious as to whether people can make the argument that when there was that clear division and everyone wasn't trying to do everything, and there was a man's place and a woman's place,
Mhm.
that many feminist, a lot of feminist theory would actually say is not the way to look at things. Was shit better? Because if it was, then we can say feminism did hurt us. Maybe it
Yeah,
wasn't good
so
for us.
I kinda went off on a tangent. I never finished explaining why this guy thinks that it hurt us, but it's pretty similar to what you
This
just said.
show is all about a tangent. That's what
Yeah,
this
I
show is
know, right? We could just
about.
named it tangents.
We should have.
So, he always said that, and this is a good point, you and I have talked about this before, that now, because women fought so hard to be able to go to work and to be independent and make their own money and all that stuff, that now when you have someone who wants to be a stay-at-home mom and is staying home with the kids and
Hmm.
has dinner on the table when her husband gets home, there's some criticism that they get for that.
Right.
Because the women that are going out to work and are all, gung ho, whether they want to be going to work or not, whatever the case may be, they can have a tendency sometimes to look down on the women that aren't working. Like, stay-at-home
Mm,
mom almost sometimes has a negative connotation. And he
it's
suggests that
true.
that's really where you hurt yourselves, you women.
Mm.
You should have just stayed at home.
Well, I mean, I think about it, and it's funny because in the comment, Jane Ann just said exactly what I was about to
Yeah.
say. Is that isn't the concept of feminism about having a choice? And I
Yeah.
think that that's really just rejecting gender norms for everyone. So that means if you are a dad and you want to be a stay-at-home dad, you should be able to do that. If you're a
Yeah.
mom and you want to be a stay-at-home mom, you should be able to do that. It's about having the choice to do whatever it is that you want to do, and that in reality the sexes should have some equality, and that they can both make that choice. That if you want to go out and work, you can go out to work. If you want to, have an advanced degree, you can go get an advanced degree. But if you don't want to do that, then you don't have to do it. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that might be the concept of it.
Yeah. Well, I guess
Mm.
we're done with the show now.
Yeah, I said we solved all the problems. One of the things I think is interesting about feminism and whether it's hurt us is I think that women have tried very hard to do the whole like, I am woman, hear me roar. I don't need you. I don't need a man. I can take care of myself. And I think a lot of that is very connected to feminism. But then at the same time, playing devil's advocate, I don't need you and I don't want a man, or I don't need a man and I don't need any man to do anything for me, but you should still open my door and you should
Yeah.
still pull out my chair and you should
And you
still be
should
a gentleman and you should still pay for dinner.
Oh, I was just gonna say that. Yes, I'm sorry. I don't care who doesn't like that, but yes, I think they should pay for dinner.
is that feminist then? Is that feminist? Like, so can you really say that there's an equality, but there should be, a standard that the man must pay, because that doesn't really go hand in hand with feminism, that we're all equal. Why can't I pay? I want to make the same amount of money. I'm fighting so that I'm not making 70 cents on the dollar. So if I'm not making 70 cents on the dollar, why the hell do you have to pay, man? Why shouldn't I be able to pay?
Yeah, well, we're not making equal, so I guess we'll have that conversation when we are making equal money. But I think there's other subtle double standards, right? Like the one that
Mm.
I really hate is how come men can just go around and have all the sex they want? No one ever calls them a slut. I'm
Mm.
tired of women being called sluts, you
You
know?
hate that word. You're very intense with your push to get rid of the word slut. I will say, for the record, I call many men sluts. So I have no problem calling a man a slut as well. But maybe that is, part of when we were talking about where did feminism even spring from. And I think of voting. I mean, you can also look at it as it sprang from the need for sexual freedom as well, for women to be able to do with our bodies what we want to do with our bodies in the same way that men can. And that
Yeah.
could be a part of feminism too, as far as the equality. That, I mean, why can't I go and screw around and not be called a slut and a man can?
Yeah, and
So
you know
that's
what?
equality.
Women are calling each other that too. I mean, how many times have you had a conversation with a group of women and someone will make a reference to someone who sleeps around and, she's a slut, and we can kind of look down on people who do that. I
Mm.
don't. I mean, it's not for me, but I honestly don't care if someone else wants to do that, then she should be able to do that. That's her
Well,
choice
let
without
me ask
thinking that, she's this terrible person.
well, let me ask you this, feminist Christina. Why isn't it for you? Why don't you want to go sleep around? Let's
Yeah,
say
keep
there's
quiet.
there's
Well, I
no
have a
significant.
boyfriend.
Well, I was about to say, let's forget about the boyfriend for a minute. And what is it that makes you believe? Let's say you were single as a bird, right? I don't know if birds are even single. Whatever. You know what I mean?
Free as a bird.
Free as a bird, single as a whatever.
Well,
I don't know. You're single. But in your mind, you're still saying, but sleeping around is not for me. I don't know many men, and I'm sure there are some, I don't know many men that do not have any sort of, you know, penis inhibitions when they're single. They're just like, I don't know, I'll
no,
go and
they don't.
sling it
Well,
around
sometimes
with
when they're
reckless
married.
abandon. Or married. Well, yeah, that's another episode too.
Yes.
But they'll go and they'll sling it around with reckless abandon. And they're kind of like, I don't know that many men who go, oh, yeah, the sleeping around thing, that's not for me. That's a very woman thing.
Yeah,
So
you're right. Touche. You're right. Yeah, I didn't need to say that. Maybe I
well,
did
I'm
have a
not saying
slutty
you
phase,
didn't.
Robin.
Well, you know what? If you did, then God bless. You know what I mean? But but I guess what I'm saying is that I think in your mind it's not for you because it's been ingrained in you that it's not supposed to be for you. Whereas men don't have that same, engineering of, if I am single and there's no reason for me to not sleep around, that I should not feel okay sleeping around. It's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I have girlfriends that and have had girlfriends in the past that they won't tell you if they slept with somebody because they're embarrassed.
Well,
You know,
it's not ladylike.
they think you might think badly of them, which I don't anybody who knows me, I don't know why they would ever think I would think badly of them, but it's so like you said, it's so ingrained in them that,
Mhm.
"Oh, I did something bad." I had sex with somebody that wasn't my husband or my boyfriend or I just met,
Yeah, I mean,
whatever. But I hope my
but
grandmother is not listening to this. If she
well,
is,
if
hi,
she
grandma.
well, I mean, if she is, she knows that you are quite the lady and that that is not for you. And that's fine. But I guess what I'm saying though is that that is all wrapped up to me in some on some level into feminism, and I do think that part of feminism is that we should have the ability to be a little bit more sexually free. But again, does that help us or hurt us?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an interesting question. Well, yeah, because I think we should have named this something different because we keep getting off of has this hurt us. I don't know. I tend to think it hasn't hurt us. I don't think it's
Hmm.
hurt us. I mean, acknowledging that there are these differences, you have to do, right? Otherwise, how would anybody ever be aware of it and change it? And let's face it, if we're not the ones who insist on the change, the men aren't going to.
Well, let me ask another question then, because I insist upon playing devil's advocate. It's what I do for
Mhm,
sport. So,
mhm.
here's my question though. If I'm going to go back and say, well, here's another area where maybe it hurt us, because I think it's so easy to look at feminism and go, of course it helped us. Of course. We're
Yeah.
here, we're rallying for equality, we're rallying for the right to vote, we're rallying for the right to go, I don't know, sit on as many laps as we would like.
I was
Um,
gonna say, where's she going with this?
well, in my mind, I was saying a lot like dirtier things, and I was like, nope, not that, not that. What can I sit on that I can say on the show? But we're fighting for all these things, and I think it's so easy to go like, yes, that's great. Of course, we should be fighting for equality. But I think on some levels, you look at it as okay, well, if we took this movement and we took it to mean that we don't need men, and I think a lot of people took it to that place as opposed to taking it to a place of we simply want a level of equality. We don't want to be a second class citizen any longer. But people think of it as like, well, no, you're really pushing it to the level of I don't need men. And then you
Yeah,
look at the rates of, a lot of things that are a lot different now. You look at single parent households, which, a lot of psychological research will say that that does have a negative impact on children growing up without a father. I'm not saying
mhm,
in a divided household. I mean, the reality is that you can have multiple households. You can have a divorced family where a father's present and a mother is present. Maybe they're not together. But if you have a father who is not present at all, that certainly has an impact on the child. And can't somebody say that that sprang from the feminist movement of I'm just going to go around, I'm going to sleep with who I want to sleep with, I'm going to get pregnant if I want to get pregnant, because guess what? I don't need a man. I could do it on my own. And then what impact does that have on our familial structure in this
yeah.
country? Maybe
Well,
it is negative.
I grew up in a home without a father, and I I, never grew up with that fantasy of having a husband and walking down the aisle and, having the traditional kind of family setting, and I I'm sure that my family experience influenced that.
Mhm. But
Um
I don't know that that's negative. Like, you don't seem to be affected negatively by that because in reality, you're saying, well, I didn't necessarily, look at myself as having to get married and having to have this traditional family structure that people say I'm supposed to have. But I don't know that that's, necessarily a bad thing.
yeah, no, I agree with you. I think it just always comes back to equality, and then we could have a discussion about what equality really means.
Well, what
Because,
does it mean?
well, I think when I think about it more in terms of having the same opportunities
Mhm.
because we don't always. I mean, I love what Notorious RBG always said was there's this fabulous quote that goes around. I'll be satisfied when there are nine.
Yeah.
And I love that quote because someone had asked her, when will you be satisfied with the number of women on the bench? And she said when there are nine, which is I love it because I didn't think about that myself. But then when she
Mhm.
says it, it seems so obvious. Well, of course. I mean, why couldn't there be all women? Right?
Oh,
There
there
were all
oh,
men. Why couldn't there
oh,
be all
yeah, that would
women?
could you imagine if it was
Oh,
if it was a Supreme Court of all women? But you're absolutely right that that seems unfathomable. I don't know how to say that word now. Um, look, guys, it's 7 o'clock on a Wednesday. I can't tell you my brain is working completely, but it's something that cannot be fathomed. Let's put it that way. Um, but the reality is for many, many, many years, it was all men, and nobody thought twice about the fact that it was, 9 men on the Supreme Court. But I think if it were 9 women, it would be like, oh my God, what is this weird feminist thing that we have, this feminist machine we have going?
Well, it'll probably never happen because people would say, well, when there were 9 men, you said that wasn't appropriate. So then why would it be appropriate to have 9 women?
For
That's probably what they
balance,
would say.
just to balance it out,
To get those years back.
Yeah, get those years back.
But it's the opportunity. Like, we still make a fuss, as we should, but I'd love to see a day. And I don't think I'm going to see it in my lifetime, but I'd love to see a day when it's not a thing because a woman became a CEO or, got some position in, became a Supreme Court justice or, some leadership position where there maybe were no women previously or have only been a few. It'd just be nice that it just would become normal to see women in these roles.
Well, I mean, I feel like when we're looking at the role of feminism, then we're kind of looking at it only from the lens of feminism in, professional and financial opportunities in a way, because, one of the comments that were made is that there is a big difference, when we're talking about sexual freedom between the sexual revolution and feminism. I mean, that is a part of feminism, but that was like a whole different thing. You know what I mean? But I guess when I look at it as, from a financial perspective or a professional perspective of having the opportunity to work any job you want to work or do what you want to do, I don't necessarily see that it's hurt us. But, I don't know. I mean, I guess then that might dovetail into the second part of your question of, okay, so, we have this feminism, and I do think that there are some double standards to it. Some of them we just spoke about, which is, we want to be equal except for when we don't want to be. So, I don't know that that's particularly fair to say, well, I am equal and I'm equal to you. But, if, again, like I said, if I'm going through a door, hold it for me, or if I'm carrying something heavy, take it from me, or, even to the level of like, if I get into the car with my boyfriend, I get into the passenger seat. I don't care if it's my car.
Yeah.
I'm like, you drive.
Yeah,
like, it just feels like how it's supposed to be.
That's why I think the word equal can get a little fuzzy too. Like I said, for me, it's opportunity. It's equality with respect to opportunities. I mean, of course, you're going to ask a dude to pick up something heavy. They just have more physical strength than we do. I mean, that's
so then we're not
biological.
equal, is what
We're
you're
not
saying.
equal. We're never going to be equal. We're never going to be the same. Does equal mean the same?
I don't
That would be
know.
the definition.
I don't think that wasn't necessarily part of our research. Maybe we should have looked up equal too, because the word equality was in the definition of feminism.
Yes, it was.
So if we're saying that we're seeking this equality, but I think we do kind of have to come to terms with the fact that there are some areas in which we are not equal. Like, I am not going to be, physiologically as strong as a man. I mean, yes, there are probably some men out there that I could kick their asses, but for the most part, I'm just saying that, I'm not going to be as strong as a man. I'm not going to be able to, to drink as much as a man for the most part. Like, our bodies are made differently. But then I don't want to then say, well, I'm not as smart as a man. I certainly think that I am. I don't think that my brain is formed differently. And there was definitely a time period when, it was said, well, for women, their brains are just formed differently. They can't handle things like the maths and the sciences. Like, they don't know how to deal with that, But, I don't know. Like, I don't know if we can then say and use this definition of feminism that uses the word equality, while also recognizing that we're really not equal, and that we're never going to really be equal. But
we're not going to be equal physically. But one definition that I just found on the interwebs is a person or thing considered to be the same as another in status or quality. And then another one says being the same in quantity, size, degree, or value. So I think we'd have to fine tune the definition of equality. But I think in this
Mm.
context that you and I are talking, I'm not convinced that it means, the same. I think the same access to resources and opportunities.
So, do we feel that we now have the same access to opportunities?
No, I don't think so, do you?
No, I don't necessarily think that it's the same. I think that that is certainly better. So, with that said, do you feel like there is still a need for feminists? I mean, we can always look at, at pay equality. That certainly is an area where we still need that push of, we need to make some change and get ourselves to bridge the pay gap. But other than that, do we even still need it anymore? Or are we kind of like, look, we're here. We're good.
I think we need it because as long as we don't have equality and opportunities and resources, I think we do need it. I mean, the definition is the advocacy of women's rights. Do we not need advocacy of women's rights anymore? I think we still do. Because
Well,
just
I
imagine if we
do.
didn't fight for that. Would, would we stop seeing, if nobody cared anymore, would we stop seeing women in new roles that were traditionally held by men? I think maybe we would.
Well, yes, I think that maybe we would, but I think we've already answered the question of, that would obviously not be a good thing, if that happens. Like, it's not whether, that would be good or bad if that were to happen. But I guess what I'm saying is, I think that we are to a place where, for the most part, everyone thinks about a woman as having an ability to handle most roles that a man can handle. Um, there are obviously some differences, and I think most of those come with physicality. But as far as leadership positions, I don't think that it's as strange now to see women CEOs or see women running countries. An example was just given to that, in the chat. Um, but
But do we just want a couple?
no, no, we want nine.
We want nine. Yeah, I
No,
mean, I don't know. I just feel like if, and you know what? I want to bring something else up too. I just completely, changed
why not? Why
directions
not?
there.
This would be a good time for a wine sip break.
I
Bring up what
know I
you'd like
was
to.
gonna have some wine, and I didn't prepare a glass for myself. I should have.
I did.
That's the Robin I know and love. So, one of the things though about some of these differences is I wonder how much of it women we could surpass faster if
Mhm.
women spoke up more. Because one of the things that I'm thinking of is studies have shown that men are much more comfortable asking for the salary that they want and asking for the perks that they want, asking for a raise. And women, not, of course, not, this doesn't apply to everybody, but it's women typically are not as comfortable demanding the pay that they want. And I wonder what would
Mhm.
happen if they all did.
Well, maybe that would have some impact on, the disparity of wages. Maybe, if women were more comfortable speaking up and saying, no, I need to make more money. This is what I deserve to make. But I
Mhm.
also think that people aren't necessarily used to hearing women speak up in that way. And we do still have, certain issues that we deal with that men don't have to deal with. As far as when we do speak up, we're more likely to be called bitches. We're more likely to be called shrill. We're more likely to be called, there are all
Yeah.
these things that we are when
Mhm.
we speak up for ourselves that men don't deal with. Um, but I think that when it comes down to it, if women spoke up more, then yeah, I do think that maybe there would be a lot of changes for us financially. And I think, even when I'm reading a lot of the comments that we're getting about this,
Yeah.
that everyone seems to think that there is a huge advantage, for women as far as feminism, financially, that there's been a financial, advantage. But one of the things that, and two people have said this about the fact, about, opening a bank account or having a bank account or getting a loan, or, owning property, and I was just listening to what was I listening to? I think it was Barack Obama's book. I'm listening to like literally 9 books at the same time. But he was talking about his grandmother working at a bank and how, she would kind of, set aside certain regulations where someone's like husband would have to sign off on something so that a woman could open an account or get a loan or do these things. And she didn't think of it as revolutionary. It was just kind of like, okay, this is what I need to do. So I definitely think that in that regard, there's been leaps and bounds. But one of the things, and one of the comments, I think it was Jen that said this in the comments, and it kind of jogged my memory, is that one of the downsides in my mind of this, feminist movement in a way, and a push for women to go to work and have jobs and be able to have jobs, is that, while we were given those opportunities and those choices, I don't necessarily think the gender roles have changed. So you and I talk all the time about the fact that women then just ended up doing double duty. You still take care of the kids. You still are responsible for child rearing. You're still responsible for cooking and cleaning and making sure that the house is the way it's supposed to be. And now you have a 40-hour a week job. So
Yeah.
we kind of screwed ourselves in that regard. Whereas before, yes, I had to cook and I had to clean and I had to take care of the kids, but I did not have to go to work 8 hours a day. And now that is so completely expected that now I have to go to work 8 hours a day, but I still have to do all the other shit. So did that really help me? Was that really helpful?
Yeah, I remember reading a book called The Second Shift, which is
Yep.
sorely outdated now, but I think it's still around and still mentioned, but that's exactly what you're referring to is the second shift. But what I don't get about that is
Mm.
why can't the man just help? I mean, and Jen, you just said hire a nanny and a personal assistant and a housekeeper, but why can't the man help? And I know that there are men helping. I do think that men's roles are evolving. There
Mhm.
are lots of households where men are doing a lot. But I think the standard is still they do less. They're still
Yeah.
doing less.
Yeah. And the reality is, when you're looking at the amount of work that being a stay-at-home wife and mother is, this just came up again in the comment about all of the things you had to hire to replace you when you go to work. Like I had to hire a nanny and an assistant and a housekeeper and like all of these different roles. You literally hire 3 different roles to replace a stay-at-home wife and mother. Um, but then you're still expected to do all of these things. And I think that a lot of
Yeah.
times when people say that feminism hasn't helped us, that's kind of why, because you're
You
kind of
know,
like, well, yeah, you got to do all these things that you think you want to do, but we're not really going to change what your role is as a woman and what our expectations of you are. That's not
yeah.
going to change. You're
You
just
know
going to
what?
have more things added.
Maybe we'll be equal when men feel just as much sense of obligation to take care of the kids, worrying about how they're going to be fed, what's for dinner, getting them
Mhm.
ready for school the next day, doing homework, brushing their teeth, taking a bath, making sure their doctor's appointments are made, and
Mhm.
getting them to their activities and buying their uniforms and their winter coats, and the list goes on and on and on. I think there's just kind of this assumption that people fall into these comfortable roles when in the traditional setting where, I'm going to help, but mom does that. And I'm tired of, people feeling like they need to give a man an award because he changed a diaper or gave the kid a bath. It's your kid. You're
Yeah.
supposed to do that. You don't get a medal because you did something you were supposed to do. Like,
Well, you
half
know what?
the moms aren't getting medals for feeding the kids dinner.
I know. Or breastfeeding. I hear that that is quite painful. Like it's not fun. It's not a good time. I feel like any of the breastfeeding mamas out there, you deserve a medal because it
Yeah.
does not seem comfortable. But I also think what's interesting when we talk about, the roles that women have and that, maybe feminism was hurtful because you have to do both of these things. I do think that there is a valid point to the fact that many men do pitch in at home and they do share
Yeah.
responsibilities at home. But
Yeah.
I also think, and I don't know, I mean, I would love to hear from some of the people listening. I think that when you have a home where there is true equality as far as the roles of, both spouses, and and it doesn't really matter what the makeup of the spouses are, whether it's two men, two women, a man and a woman, whatever it is, right? When there's true equality, I think that's because both people believe in that equality. So in my mind, if you have a home where both people work, both people take care of the kids equally and nobody thinks they deserve a medal for it, both people cook and they clean, and both people take care of the house and do the things they're supposed to do, in my mind, I believe that that's probably because the man in that house is probably a feminist too, and may not know that he is, but in his mind, he simply believes that there's equality in these roles and that the woman should not be, forced to take on more simply because she's a woman. That yes, if the kids need to eat, I'm going to feed them. If the kids need to go to school, I'm taking them to school. If there's a dirty diaper, I'm changing it. That's just what we're supposed to do. We all pitch in.
Yeah, I definitely see that more and more. I see the men doing a lot of the stuff that moms traditionally would do. Um, but definitely want to see that be more commonplace. And I think as the dinosaurs become extinct,
Mhm.
the old guard, I think that will become more and more common. But I don't want to disrespect anyone who really is in a traditional role where there's a stay-at-home mom and the dad is the one going to work. I think that if that's the arrangement that some people want, I totally respect that. Sometimes it just makes sense. I mean, daycare is so expensive that depending on how much money you make, sometimes and how many kids you have, it just
Yeah.
doesn't make sense for one person for both people to go to work.
But I think that circles back to exactly what we said from the very beginning. And what we talked about was that in reality, it really should be about choice. It should be about the fact that if you choose, to stay home and take care of children and you're a woman, that doesn't mean that you're less than a woman who chose not to do that, who maybe chose to outsource those things because, there were other things that she wanted to do. I don't think that's a good thing or a bad thing. I think that, you know, in my mind, where feminism kind of kicked us in the teeth is when you do end up in that position where you're expected to pull double duty.
Mhm.
That's when I go, this isn't really what I signed up for. And to be honest with you, look, I personally think, and maybe this is rightly or wrongly, and maybe this speaks to, you know, how I think about feminism. But I think part of the reason that I'm not married and I don't have kids is because I felt, whether consciously or subconsciously, that I had to make a choice. And
Yeah.
I made a choice to pursue my career. That's the choice that I made. And then by the time that I was in a place where I was comfortable, like I'd be fine having a little crumb snatcher now. I mean, I wouldn't want to have it.
Crumb snatcher.
I don't know, like the whole pregnancy thing, and I don't know, and I'm waddling around and I have morning sickness. Like, I don't know that I'm into that. Would I adopt a kid now? Yeah, perhaps I would. But like,
Adopt an 18-year-old.
yeah, first of all, Christina, I would adopt a 16-year-old. I'd give it 2 years. I would give it 2 years before I'm like, you're out on your own, crumb snatcher, go. But I do think that I do feel like I had to make a choice as but I don't think me thinking I had to make a choice between the two is a very feminist thing. I shouldn't have to make a choice.
Well,
But I
that's what
do
I was
think
gonna
that
say
I
too is,
did.
how many men feel that way? That, oh, I have to make a choice between pursuing my career or having a family. I don't think that's ever a thought. Please
No,
tell me if that's been a thought, because
no. I
I just don't think that that's something that typically comes to men's minds, worrying about how they're going to do both.
No, I recently read a book and I can't remember the book. This is the problem with reading a lot of books, guys, is that all of the information swirls in your head and you have no idea where it came from. But I was reading this book and they were talking about, women going out into the workforce. It might have been A History of Marriage. That might have been what I was reading. But women going out into the workforce and how there was such a big differential between, bosses giving them time off to deal with the kids, and the fact that as a woman you were able to get the time off, whereas as a man, if you said, look, I need to take this time off to watch
Yeah,
my kids, the
that's
employer
true.
was like, what do you mean you need to go home and watch your kids? But then that also then tied in to the advancement of that woman. She was like, yeah, I can get the time off to watch my kids, but I never get a damn promotion. I never get a raise. Like I'm not, moving up in the company the way that the men are, because no, my boss doesn't grimace when I ask for time off to go take my kids to school,
Yeah.
but I'm also not getting that promotion that I want.
Yeah. Well, Bettina said something about that earlier. She said, as an HR consultant, we all need to push back on our employers. We shouldn't be at work more than at home with family. As Americans, we have a ridiculous mindset on work ethics. And I totally agree with that 100%. It's interesting how in other countries, they get really lengthy maternity and paternity leave, and they're expected to take it. They take
Yeah.
it. It's just normal. It's not like the company that gives you vacation time, but then, frown at you when you actually use it. They want you to use it. That's expected, that you're going to spend time with the family when there's a new baby. And also they get a lot of vacation time. I knew some Polish people that they got an entire month off. And my first question was, how did you get all that time off work? And they just kind of looked at me like, what do you mean? We value time off. We encourage that.
Yeah, I mean, but I think that when you look at, the way that their society is structured and their family is structured, I think that they reap a huge benefit from that. That you do have time off to enjoy your family and to watch them grow and do all of these things that we as Americans don't do. Man or woman, I think this is probably one of the areas where there is a lot of equality between us. That if you're in the workforce, whether you're a man or whether you're a woman, whatever it is, you're not getting the time you need to have.
Yeah.
Whenever I go on what I call a vacation, but whenever I meet foreigners, they're on holiday. When they're on holiday, like you said, it's like for 3 weeks. You're like, oh, how long are you going to be here? 3 weeks. And then me, it's like, I'm here for 4 days and then I'm going back to work.
I know. And I think we look at people cross-eyed if they actually get 2 weeks vacation, because the standard is 1 week, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I not so much anymore now that I'm self-employed, but when I was working for someone else, and I met someone who had 2 weeks off for vacation consecutive, I thought, wow, really? You got 2 weeks? They didn't say anything? That's ridiculous. Why can't we have 2 weeks off? Come on now.
What I will say as a sidebar, and we're way off track as normal.
Yes, we're shit talking.
I feel like now that I'm self-employed, I actually get less time off because, it's one of those things where it's like, when I had an employer, I had, my time off. You got X amount of days off, and I took those days. I said, these are my days to take. I'm taking them. And now I literally, and granted, we're in the age of Rona, so I can't go with this year, but I looked back on the last like 9 months, and I'm thinking, I haven't been on vacation in over a year. In well over a year, I haven't been on vacation.
Did you take time off? Were you like even a staycation?
No, well, the one time I was going to go on vacation was right before we were about to go into lockdown in March, and we were going to go away. And then we chose not to go away because I was afraid they were going to shut borders and this, that, and the other. So I didn't go anywhere. Well, Bettina, do the math. The last time was Jamaica in August. Do the math, my friend. So
she said you didn't take off when you were working for someone.
Oh, shut up. Yes, I did. Okay, fine. Maybe I didn't, but but I think that I took off the time I was allotted to take off. I didn't take off like 2 weeks.
You know what I say to my staff? Because we've had people working for us that they would never use their time. And I even think this so stupid, because you need your time off. You need it. Everybody needs to just turn off, decompress, and just have those weeks where it's fun time, and or there's just nothing that they have to do. There's no responsibility. You need that. I think you need that mental break. And I would just tell my staff just like this, if you're not taking your vacation time, you're not a hero. I don't think you're a hero. I think you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're not getting extra points, because I think there's this mentality like, oh, I never take any of my time off. I just churn every day. I think you're an idiot, and I think you're going to burn out.
So yes, and it's very funny because in our employee manual, there's actually like a blurb for time off where we say, you know, everyone is expected and encouraged to take time off to relax and enjoy family, and it's very important. Like we actually had to put a paragraph to talk about why it's important for you to take time off and the fact that we actually expect you to do that. Um, I'm also going to say, for those of you who are not paying attention to the comments, I'm going to tell Bettina that she is no longer allowed to watch the show because she's telling all of my damn
Do you
secrets.
can we block her? Can we block
Can we
Bettina from
block
commenting?
Bettina
Oh,
from
we can block her.
from talking about the fact that I didn't take vacations to the extent that maybe she would have liked me to. And yes, there were times I flew out on Friday and came back on Monday, and it was not Sunday, it was Monday, but still. So no Bettina.
Steve says, leave her alone. Leave
Thank
Bettina
you.
alone.
No,
You know,
he's saying leave me alone.
oh,
I am
oh,
assuming somebody's sticking up
I
for
thought
me
they knew
here.
each other. I don't know who these people are.
I hope somebody's sticking up for me here. But you know what's funny is in a way to try to kind of like tie this back into our actual topic. I'm going to
Yeah.
do it. Watch me do it. So in the comments, we were talking about you looking at other countries and the European model for the, you know, for example, of how they deal with vacations, et cetera. But I also think that because they have a different view of family in general and the importance of everybody spending time with family, I would think that Europeans might be a little bit further ahead in their feminism than we are. I don't know. I mean, because if you're looking at the fact that they expect everybody to take, as Bettina said, you know, 3-hour lunches, it's because whether you're a man or a woman, you're expected to come home and spend time with your family and, you know, and fulfill that role of being a family person. I don't know. I don't know about enough about Europe to know what they think about feminism or how far ahead they are or not ahead, but I'd be curious to
I,
see if there's some tie into that,
I
to the
think
fact that they give you all this time.
I think they're generally just more relaxed. I know someone who used to work for, I can't remember what company it was, but she would have to do work on projects with the office in France. And, you know, there's the time difference. And
Mhm.
she said that once it was 5 o'clock where they were, it was done. That's it. Everything shut down. You didn't get people
Mm.
that were you know, checking their emails later at home and still doing work from their iPhones. And she was sort of complaining a little bit because it made it a little harder for her to get the projects done because there was this short window of time that they were because of the time difference that they could actually work on things.
Mm.
But at the same time, we kind of admired that when they were done with work, they were done with work. You know, it's like
Mm.
it's time to go home now and do other things besides work. And I think
Well,
that's self-care.
I do too. But I also think when I look at Europeans or other countries, for the most part, I think that they're also much more chivalrous
Mhm.
there. And I don't know whether or not, I mean, that might be a whole other show about
Yeah.
chivalry, but I don't know whether or not you can have both chivalry and feminism at the same time. Because I do think in my mind, I think they're a little, you know, contradictory. Like
Can
I think.
chivalry and feminism coexist? I gotta write that down.
Ooh, new topic. Yes. I think that we should talk about that because I don't know. And don't worry, guys, we're not going to talk about it right now, almost an hour in. But you know, I don't know if I can say that I want to be equal and I'm, you know, I'm the same as you and I can do the same things you can do if I still expect you to treat me differently because I'm a lady.
Well, something else I was gonna bring up is, has this happened to you in the past? When I was working for someone else, because I was single, unmarried,
Mhm.
had a boyfriend, unmarried though, and no children. I There was just this expectation that I was always available. And
Oh yeah.
there were other women in the office were married and had kids. And it was always, oh, well, you know, she's got to go home because she's got to go pick up the kids from daycare, or, you know, she got to go get with the kids, and the kids are sick, and the kids this, and the kids that, and the kids. And, oh, but Christina, you know, where are you going? What?
Right.
You
You
want to go
or
on
you can
vacation? What
right,
are you going to vacation for? You
you
don't
can
have any
come in
kids.
You can come in on Sunday, right? Just come in
Yeah,
on
right?
Sunday.
I don't know, maybe because I wanna fucking go on vacation? Excuse my
Yeah.
French. Maybe
Well,
because I just
we
need
were
a
just
break
talking
from
about
you
France.
people.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do want to make this very clear though, because I do think I've spoken a few times about chivalry. I'm into it. I want my doors opened. I want you to help me put my coat on. I want you to pay for dinner. I do. I do. And maybe that makes me anti-feminist, but I do. I enjoy those things. I think that it is nice for there to be ladies and for there to be gentlemen.
Jen's not into the door. I'm into the door. I did date a guy who always opened the car door. I have to tell you, it was stupid and annoying. I didn't understand it. It would just take us longer to get in the car. And, honestly, he was an asshole. So I would have been like, just don't open the door for me, but stop being an asshole. Okay.
Right. Like
That would be my
I
tip.
can get my own door, just don't be an asshole. Like why don't we make that exchange?
Yeah.
I'm not saying like I certainly don't find it annoying for a man to hold a door for me. I think that it's a nice thing. But what I will say is holding doors for me is a little bit different because I hold doors for people too. Like for me it goes both ways. Like if I see someone, I mean many times I've been walking into my building and I see a guy like struggling with his briefcase in a box and all these things and I will like run ahead of him to go get the door because it's
Yeah.
just
That's just being
polite.
a
It's the
nice
polite
person.
thing to do.
Yeah, that's
But
just being a nice person. You know what I hate though, and guys used to do this to me back when I was dating, and I hear women that I know now who are dating. I hate this when the guy goes, "Text me when you get home so I know you got home okay." What? Why am I not going to get home okay? I'm a grown
I
ass woman. We've already talked about this on a
that
previous episode.
doesn't that doesn't bother me though.
Oh,
I
I
think
think
that
it's so
that's
stupid.
sweet. I think it's sweet. Like I do. I mean, especially depending on like where I'm coming from or where I'm going. Or I mean, like, look, if I'm going down the street and like my house is right there, that's one thing. But I don't find it annoying. Like if I'm out with someone, just thank
I'm a
you.
dating Grinch, right, Steve?
I know. I think it's caring too. I think I think if I'm going out with somebody and they say, "Hey," especially if it's very late at night or it's the weather's bad or it's dark, I don't know, and they're kind of like, "Hey, text me and let me know you got home okay."
I don't know.
I think
I
it's
think it's
nice.
stupid. I just
I
want to
mean,
be like, well, I've said this already. Oops, drop my microphone. I I'm gonna get home fine. I always get home fine. Like, where are
mm,
you that you're not gonna get home fine? Are you in
I don't
another
know.
country? Like,
Okay,
in a
well,
crime
fine,
war-torn country,
fine.
with a
Let's
flashlight
take
and not speaking the language? I mean,
let's take it to that level then. If you go on vacation by yourself, which I know that you do the same way that I do, and your boyfriend says to me, "Hey, text me when you land." You don't think that that's nice for him to be like, "Hey, like let me
that's
know you got in
different.
okay."
That's not some dude that you don't know that well and you just went on a date and he wants you to text him to let him know you got home okay. I almost think they just say that because they think that they get some points or something for it.
I don't know. I will say that if it's late at night and my good friend Bettina who has called me out all night can attest to. But like if she's at my house hanging out and she like goes home and it's late, I will say, "Can you text me and let me know you got home?"
Well,
Like I will.
I have a joke with my friend Lauren because she'll hang out at my house and she'll go home late.
Yeah.
And I'll say, text me so that when I get up in the morning, I know you got home okay.
Exactly, right. So wait, exactly, because I'm going to bed, but when I wake up, and I will tell you, if I wake up, and Bettina will tell you this, if I wake up and I don't get her damn text, I will text her and say, "Oh, excuse me, I just woke up. It's 6 a.m. Are you alive? Like, what is going on? I did
Yeah.
not
Are
wake
you
up to your
okay?
I'm home text."
Or
Yeah.
days later. I haven't heard from you, but I don't know. Are you okay?
Well, you know what? Jen was talking too in the chat about guys buying you drinks. Okay, so we were talking about like I expect a guy to pay for. I think expect is a strong word. I think it's nice if a guy pays for dinner. I will, however, if it's a guy that I go out with often, like if it's a friend and not like a boyfriend, I'll be like, hey, like let me pay sometimes too. Like you don't always have to pay for me. I don't argue that hard though. I want you to know. I will argue for the bill exactly twice before I give up. I'll be like, no, no, let me. No, no, let
Yeah.
me. After the second let me, I don't let me anymore. Like, fine, take it. But drinks. She was saying like if a guy buys you a drink and then like they kind of latch on to you all night, like they feel like that drink bought your attention for the
Yes,
whole
they have
night.
made an investment in you now, Jen.
Dude,
Because
it's
they bought you a
$12.
$15 drink or whatever it cost.
Right. My time is worth. Look, if we're going to look at it from billable rates, you need to buy me a lot more drinks to get an hour of my time. That's number one.
I
Number
don't think
two,
they're looking for your time.
oh, well, I mean,
Well, maybe your
if,
time too, but
if time
something
is a
else.
euphemism, Christina, that probably is what they're looking for. But I don't think the $12 drink it really should get you like conversation with me the entire night. In fact, if I think that that's where this is going, I am more than happy to turn down a drink. Like I'll buy my own $12 drink. I'm not talking to you all night for $12.
Yes,
I'm
I
not.
remember in college when I was broke, I would definitely let boys buy because that's kind of what
Boys.
they were. Buy me drinks, and it was a fun game. Like, oh, let's see who we can get to buy us drinks. But then as I got older and more mature, and I actually was making my own money, I just was like, it's not worth the trouble. If I don't really want to talk to you, I'm not letting you buy me a drink because I really just don't want to have to sit here and talk to you because you bought me a drink. And I can buy my own dinner too. Because I knew people that would do that. They would just go out with guys just to go get a free dinner. And
That's very
I thought it was
anti-feminist.
so stupid. Like, you know what? I'd rather just go and get my own dinner and enjoy it and not have to deal with someone's company that I don't really want just to get a
No,
free meal.
no,
Or
it's
maybe that's
definitely.
feminism.
I
Make
think
your
that
own
is.
damn money, buy your own damn drink and your own meal.
But I will still accept a free meal and a free
Oh,
drink.
I will
I
too.
will.
I
I will.
have nothing
So
against free stuff. Okay. I just want to say
no.
that for the record.
And if it's something where somebody's being kind and they're saying, "Hey, let me take you to dinner because you had a hard week or it's your birthday or you got a promotion or whatever." Sure, take me to dinner. Or if it's, I think this is a whole other episode too. I also think that there's like an invitation rule. Like I think if you invited me, you probably should pay. I
When,
don't know.
when you're with a man,
Yeah, I think so. Because I don't feel that way with women. I'm not going to lie. Like with my female friend, if you said to me right now, let's go grab dinner, I wouldn't be like, well, you invited me to dinner. So I'm expecting Christina's going to pay. I wouldn't have that expectation. I would just be like, oh, yeah, let's go get dinner. But I think, if
yeah.
it's in I don't know, a capacity of like, I don't even know if it's dating. I mean, dating for sure. I think if you invite me on a date, you should pay. And if I invite you on a date, I should pay. I mean, I think in friendship, it should probably go back and forth.
Uh-oh, they're
Um,
vacuuming in my office. Can you hear it?
I don't hear it. Well, Stephen is saying it's hurtful to be taken advantage. I agree, but I think it's
Yeah,
hurtful for anyone. I
you're
think
right,
it's
Steve. But you know what? I have heard stories of women meeting people on Bumble and those sites now. Let me know if you hear the vacuum.
I
and
don't.
and saying, well, I went out on this date and the guy, was started talking about how he goes on all these dates and he doesn't pay, almost like putting them on notice, like, hey, I'm not paying for your dinner because, it's just so expensive going out on all these dates and paying for everybody, which I just feel like that's so, I don't know, offensive
Mm,
to me if someone said that. What do
yeah.
you think?
Um, I do think that it's offensive in a way, but I do think from a man perspective, going on dates is expensive. Like it does
Yeah.
cost a lot of money if
Take
you're
them out for
buying
a
all these
drink or
dinners.
coffee then.
Well, I know that when I was like out dating, you know, like in the world of just like meeting people and I was dating online, like I would never go to dinner with somebody. It was always coffee. It was
Yes.
always like, how about we go get coffee?
Yes,
Like
or
that's
a
it.
drink. Yes,
Yeah,
because
like it was never a commitment of a full meal of like, let's go get a full meal.
yeah, because what if
Because
you don't like them?
right. And then you have to sit there the whole time and wait for your salmon to come and you're just kind of ready to go.
Yeah, and
Like
you're
that's
like,
not
"This is going
comfortable.
nowhere." I have
Yeah.
to listen to
We
this guy droll on about his divorce.
Oh
I think I should be charging
god.
him a consultation fee.
Well, I mean, if you think about it, if you go to an expensive enough place, then maybe it will be the equivalent to a consultation fee. Like you pay for my dinner and I will listen to you drone on about your divorce and I will tell you how you did everything wrong and that no, you're not going to get full custody of your child simply because your wife is a bitch. That's not going to happen. So
Wait, we
like
don't use the word bitch here.
I don't mind the word bitch. I'm into it. In fact, I have a mug. Hold on. Where's my mug? I have it handy because I will show you how much I don't mind the word bitch. Look.
100% that bitch. Okay. Duly
Yeah.
noted.
Thank you.
Duly
Yes.
noted. I had a thought, but I forgot what it was.
Well, it's probably the thought was probably that we're not even talking about feminism anymore.
Well, we kind of are. I mean, that's, we go off on these tangents. They're sort of related. We always circle back. So I don't know, be a bitch. I used to use that word a lot. I probably do use it. I just don't even realize it. But I think what I don't like it is it is kind of demeaning, isn't it? I mean, why should we be calling each other bitches?
Um, I don't know. It's one of those things that I feel like it depends on how it's said. You know what I mean? Like I do feel a certain way when a guy is constantly referring to like a woman as a bitch and like, oh, this bitch said that and this bitch said like every woman's a bitch. It does kind of rub me the wrong way. And I do think that there is some level of trying to embrace certain words to take away, some of the hurtful effect of them. I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people say the same thing about the N word. I hate it. But a lot of people are like, well, black people are going to reclaim that word and take away the negative connotation. I don't feel that way. And so
Yeah.
in a way, I kind of respect the people that don't feel that way about bitch. It doesn't bother me in certain contexts the same way that, the N word doesn't bother people in certain contexts, depending on how it's said and who is saying it. Maybe that's kind of like the way I feel about bitch. It depends on who's saying it and how it's said. So I do have to respect the people that just hate the word the same way I hate the N word. I don't care how it's said. I
Yeah.
have to respect people that just hate that word. And that's
I
okay.
don't I mean, I don't hate the word. I just kind of question sometimes whether it's good for us to be using it. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? I just kind of ponder that sometimes. Like maybe we shouldn't be perpetuating the use of that word. Because I hate when men will just use it very conveniently, like when a woman does anything that they don't like.
Or,
Oh, she's just a bitch. Or,
but I know,
she expects to be paid the same as, Tom over there who's doing the same job. What a bitch. It's like so that's why I almost don't want to use it.
but I also know people that don't even use it positively or negatively. Like that is just to
Yeah.
them interchangeable for the word woman. Like, oh my God, I was talking to this bitch and she said this. And I'm like, what made her a bitch? Well, no, I'm just saying I was talking to her. But
A
what
woman.
right, but you said this bitch. Like what made
Yeah.
her a bitch? And
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
and it's almost like they're like, well, no, I just meant like, and then this bitch said this. And I'm like, but what about that made her a bitch? Like I'm thinking
Yeah.
about my definition of bitch, and some people just use that interchangeably for this woman, and that bothers me. Like that
Yeah.
like gets under my skin in such a way of like, why is every woman a bitch? Why are the two words synonymous?
Maybe our next show could just be what about the word bitch.
Maybe.
What do you guys
Maybe
think? What do you
we
think,
can bring
Christina?
I you know what? Maybe I would like to hear. We should maybe have a guest. Let's try to find a bitchy guest. Who wants to be our
Oh, we
bitchy
already
guest?
have 2 on here?
Who would like to be our bitchy guest next
Well,
week?
Frank, I do call some of my friends, I'll call them bitches. Like, "Hey, bitch." And
That's
it seems fun,
true.
but then later I'm like, "I don't know, maybe we shouldn't be calling each other that."
I know.
Or what my favorite is, "Peace out, bitches." When I'm
Right,
going
like
on
I'm out,
vacation or
bitches. I'm
something.
out. Yeah,
"Peace out, bitches."
I think it does depend on context.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, but Bettina says we shouldn't use it in everyday language, but if you are called one, show them how much of a bitch you are. I'm here for it.
Yeah, but then I feel like that's perpetuating what bitch means. I mean, doesn't bitch really just mean a woman who's standing up for herself? Because we're not supposed to do that.
Yes,
It
but
makes
in
the
that
people in
but in
power
that
feel
regard,
uncomfortable.
but if that's what it means, then I look at it as like, okay, then I'm going to continue standing up for myself. Like, if you're going to call me a bitch anyway, let me just show you I am your definition of a bitch. I
But why
am going to stand up for
perpetuate
myself.
that definition of bitch? If we stop calling that bitch and just call it what it is, that's just a woman standing up for herself. It's not a bitch.
Mm,
It's just a woman standing up for herself. Why?
I
Like,
don't
I
know.
feel like by using the word and using it with that definition, it just perpetuates it.
Maybe. But my I guess to the point that was being made in the comments is that but if you're going to call me a bitch anyway, I'm going to continue to do that behavior that you deem bitchy. So it just doesn't matter. Like
Meaning, I'm
but
going to stand up for myself.
yes, and I also think that when you get to a certain point in life, and maybe this is mine now that I'm over the 40 hump, when you get to a certain point in life, I really don't give a shit as much about what people say. Like, call me a bitch.
Yeah,
I don't
it's
really
true.
care. Like, it doesn't really matter to me anymore.
Somebody said that in the comments. I'm sorry if you're not getting due credit. There was
I
someone who
know.
said that.
Yes.
Yeah, but I just like actually if someone's calling you a bitch for that reason, because you're standing up for yourself, I think it probably says more about them. Like, why are you uncomfortable with that? Right? Like
Mm.
like if a man is saying that to me, why are you uncomfortable that I'm standing up for myself, that you have to demean me by calling me
There.
a bitch?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't have an answer to this. I think we need a whole bitch episode.
We do.
A
Jen and
whole-
everybody, I hope you'll come back.
Yes, everybody
Jen,
come back for the bitch episode because this was not really what this was. So I do think it has to do with feminism for sure, but I think
yeah,
that we can probably spend some time just unpacking the word bitch, and I'll bring my
I
bitch mug.
agree. You're
I'll
gonna
bring my
do
bitch.
research. I know you will. I'm
Damn
gonna do
it!
research too.
I am gonna do research. You know I'm gonna do research, but I
And
think you guys should come back for the bitch episode.
yeah, let's
That's
do
what I'm
that. The
thinking.
bitch episode. That's what it's gonna
Bitch
be called.
episode.
And Jen, I just want to answer your question. If is the opposite of bitch nice? I don't think it's nice. I think it's just knowing your place. Being
I
in your place,
I think it's being a
right?
pushover. Like if
Don't
I had to do
ruffle any feathers.
a complete opposite, it's kind of like you're a bitch or you're a pushover.
Don't ask for anything. Don't ask for too much. Don't ask for anything we don't want to give you. Or
I
you're a
don't know.
bitch.
I don't know, but I'm going to do some research. We're going to have the bitch episode next week. That's
The
what we're going to
bitch
do.
episode. I like
You
that.
heard it here
Here
first.
I am using the word. Broke my own rule.
You're going to have to say bitch a lot a week from
I
today. So I
know.
want you to just like maybe you need to meditate on it, pray on it, feel comfortable, but there's going to be a lot of bitches being thrown around next week.
Yeah.
Lots of bitches.
Yeah. All right, kids. Well, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week for the bitch episode. Have a
See you
great
next week, bitches.
night. Peace out, bitches.
Peace out. Bye.